let me not forget forced labor. That's another form of slavery. We know that there are other forms that I'm not going to mention here that are just horrible and goes on every day. As Dr. Emily Buquest Soul of California State University, in her paper, she makes note of this. I don't know if I mentioned before, but her paper is named From Africa to the Ocean Sea, Atlantic Slavery in the Origins of the Spanish Empire, Atlantic Studies. So this is on page 16. So here's the text in case you want to read it, screenshot it. But it says the following. Of course, no matter how it is defined, Amerindian slavery or indigenous slavery was fundamentally different from African slavery. Legally, it was not chattel slavery, whereby the slave became the lifetime movable property of the owner. It was easier for Amerindians to blend in to colonial society, either through passing or through marriage or personal relationships. In other words, not all the Spanish and Portuguese were white or white-skinned, light-skinned. The Amerindians could blend in. Amerindian slavery was always contested, often by powerful and prominent representatives of the Catholic Church. African slavery, in contrast, would not be openly contested. He continues saying that as soon as Columbus returned from the New World, all of these territories were considered part of the Spanish crown. So these Indians or indigenous people were considered subjects. They were citizens of these invaders. So she states broadly the experience of the Amerindian slaves in colonial Spanish America, so Puerto Rico, La República, Cuba, etc., mirrors that of the natives of the Canary Islands. So some of them were exempted from slavery while others were exploited by the various exceptions to the laws that they passed trying to protect the indigenous people from slavery. So those who were captured and brought later from Sub-Saharan Africa were from lands where the Spanish crown didn't have any actual say, so they could not be trusted. So the Iberian invaders saw the indigenous people in a different light because they believed, and they seem to be the Lulu all the time, that because they had given the indigenous people a choice to become part of the Spanish Empire, that they basically had some sort of affinity for them. And even though the Africans that were forced into slavery were later on also baptized and converted to Catholicism, etc., etc., because of the way they were taken, the Spanish were very well aware that they probably did not have great feelings towards them. By describing them as negros, they made it very clear that, as Emily says, they were people without a home, a culture, or history. So just to be clear, the Europeans did not start the slave trade. Arabs started it. The Europeans also participated in it amongst themselves. But in Africa, the Africans in particular already had a slavery system established way before the Europeans arrived. Used slavery to get rid of their prisoners of war. Their prisoners, even though they were also dark-skinned, they had no political or moral obligations to them, to their enemies. They saw them as they were another nation, another people. Portuguese then tapped into this system and commercialized it, meaning that they made it available to others through open markets to be bought and sold. And that's when it boomed.